welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be doing another art time lapse based on a childhood, I guess, whimsical idea I've always really enjoyed, and that's a mushroom house. If you were to ask me when I was, let's say, 6 or 8 year old, how I imagine my future dream home to be, I will tell you that it is in the shape of a red mushroom and I'll be living in it. I've always been really fond of this idea, so I decided to do a piece that is based on this childhood wild dream of mine. But at the same time, I wanted to have a whimsical flair that is based on one of my all-time favorite characters, my neighbor Totoro from Studio Ghibli. I'm using acrylic wash today, starting off the piece with a base coat of blue acrylic wash and then adding in my mushroom and then a layer of green to show where the horizon line is going to be. Now, usually I don't paint negatively like this, where I paint the background with this dark umber brown and then leaving space for the furniture and so forth after that. But the reason I'm doing it this time is just that it really helps with saving paint, so I don't have to go back and repaint the white parts again. It just saves so much time. Here I'm going back painting over the sky because I want something a teeny bit lighter, given that the inside of the mushroom house is quite dark. I'll be creating a cute little red accent chair that the character will be sitting on. I always imagine having a beautiful accent chair with perhaps an interesting pattern in my own house, but to be honest, I am pretty minimalistic and not too much of an interior designer, so my own home is quite plain. I've got a new paintbrush from Opus Art Supplies and I am loving how much of a difference it is making for my artwork to have a new brush that has a fine tip. Here I'm trying to make space for the characters that I will be adding in at the end. When I first started painting this piece, I thought that I would do something based on the Alice Wonderland theme because I've always liked to paint that theme as well. But at the end, I decided to go back to something I'm more comfortable with, such as Studio Ghibli. Now I think the mushroom house looks pretty plain outside, so I decided to add a little bit of plants outside, whether it might be flowers or whatnot. The whole piece is not entirely panned out in my head, but I'm sure it'll work out at the end. Here I decided I'm going to add a rug in the middle of the living room. This piece is currently painted on a 7-inch by 7-inch art block. With the fine tip of the watercolor brush, I'm trying to create outlines right now. Here it's quite crucial for my hand to be as steady as I can, and I try to make one broad stroke rather than lots of mini strokes. Just to speed things up for you, as you can see, I am not a very fast painter, so maybe it will make it a little bit more interesting for you guys. But again, you can see I'm making these long strokes and just doing it slowly rather than minute strokes, adding it together for a fine outline. As always, I have my soy sauce dish on the side where I am putting all my acrylic wash paint onto. Guys, if you enjoy this content, please consider like, subscribe, and sharing. It really helps with letting people know about this channel. Overall, the piece I find still lack a lot of detail and highlights, so still a long ways to go, but I think I'm enjoying the process of figuring out what to do, so onwards and forward. I have a feeling that my childhood dream of living in a mushroom house comes from maybe the Smurfs, because I've been really into Blue Smurf when I was a kid. Here I'm adding in other flowers. Not exactly what kind of flowers I'll add, but I knew that they will have to be like different patterns and different colors. The general color scheme I have is a scarlet red, yellow, blue, some umber brown, and also a moss green. Here I'm just being careful not to use too much water on my brush, just so I can create the fine tips for the details of the flower. It looks pretty good so far. Again, I'm adding a little bit more white to the blue sky because I find that it's still a little bit on the darker side than I would like. And then I'm trying to create more distinction in the grass on the bottom, so I'm darkening it a little bit and adding a little bit of windows on the side so you can't see it from this angle, I guess. Slowly adding in more scarlet red onto the artwork as each layer dries. This next part I always thought I would enjoy the most, which is adding the little details. Hopefully these curves will add more texture and dimension to the mushroom house, because right now it looks pretty flat to me. When I started working on this piece, there was no argument that this is going to be a red and white mushroom. It was always something I had on my mind, and when I look back at the little sketches that I did when I was a kid, it was always a red and white mushroom house. Is this very odd to a lot of people, or did you guys have dream houses that were totally figment of your imagination too? And was Blue Smurf a thing for everybody's childhood? Because I was so into the Smurf family. Here I'm adding in more white in the areas that I want to stand out more. As you can see, each of these layers have to be done slowly to let the previous layer dry so that the next layer will stand out. Just like how I'm letting the grass dry and then green grass dry and then adding on the little grass on top afterwards. This whole process looks super fast as I'm looking through this art time lapse, but really it took a while to get to this point. Then adding details for the flowers. Here I'm painting in the furniture, but making sure that I create ideas of where the light is coming from so it's not all one flat color, and adding the frames for the picture frames as well. Here I'm just going to give everyone a little bit of time just to watch the painting process without me bothering you with my monologue. So here I decided to add a little character to hang out Totoro because he'll probably be really lonely if he was all by himself in this little mushroom house. Here I'm getting into the meat of the artwork where I'm actually coloring where Totoro is gonna be. At this point, I'm just adding in where the darker shadows would be to create more dimension after I've added in some highlights. I think it's a little lonely for him to just sit on a chair like that, so we're gonna add in a little teacup, get him something to stare at, and enjoy. Here, just adding in the final details for the Totoro characters, creating more dimension rather than just a flat gray color for the character. Well, that's all for this piece. I hope you enjoy watching the art time lapse on my process. Here is the final product. Thank you so much for following along, and I will see you in the next art time lapse. Take care.